Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Philip. This is Ranger Dressbit, and today we're looking at another Whiskey Library review. And what are we reviewing today? As we got on the wheel on Friday, Four Roses Single Barrel Bourbon. This one is not the newest. This is barrel 58-20 out of Warehouse TS, I want to say. Of course, bottle at 50% alcohol by volume. This bottle I have courtesy of my good friend Skip. And I'm going to hurt his feelings a little bit today, but you'll see that. For those of you who are members of the Whiskey Lodge, you will, of course, know Skip. Anytime anybody posts anything along the lines of you can skip, capital S on skip, bourbon altogether, it's just to wind him up because we love him and we love winding him up. Now, Four Roses is an interesting brand. They have a really interesting approach to making bourbon and their own recipe, and I think probably do more separate, specifically bourbon mash bills of any distillery in the United States. And I think there is some merit to what they do. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of merit to like the different mash bills and showing how much difference yeast can make and grain bill and whatnot. But this is their flagship single barrel. The one that is sort of their standard single barrel. I believe it's OESB. I don't remember. Honestly, it doesn't matter that much because when you go into a liquor store and you buy just the standard off the shelf brown label single barrel like this, it's going to be the same mash bill because that's the one that they produce the most of, would be my guess, and it's what they believe gives them the best variety, or not variety, but the best standard for their single barrel. So it's what's most commonly in that barrel, unless it's a barrel pick, excuse me, or one of their red label like OESK or whatever. Anyway, all that to say, this is roughly equivalent to just about any Four Roses single barrel that you can pick up in a store. They do not put an age statement on these, but we know that it is more than 4 years old because it is a straight whiskey and it does not have an age statement. Let's talk about the nose. On the nose, you've got some caramel, that like classic dusty oak note, a little hint of baking spice, something like Cara corn syrup. If you've ever like been like in your grandmother's kitchen and you pulled out a bottle of Caro corn syrup and it's got like some sticky stuff on it and you've like scraped that off and sniffed it, that's what this smells like a little bit. There's a little bit of alcohol burn on there, like just in the nose. Not uncommon for something starting in this price proof point. It is not super exciting. It doesn't really jump out at me. That shouldn't be surprising because, again, this is one of those mass market, maybe a little bit more aimed at the connoisseur than most, but not, super exciting special thing. It is on the nose, very easygoing. Again, caramel, dusty oak notes, a little bit of baking spice, some like Caro corn syrup, butter popcorn. And that's about it. On the palate, you get a little bit more of that like butter popcorn note, a little bit of more of that Caro corn syrup taste, some dustiness, some light sweetness, just maybe a little bit of like spice. And that's all, again, barrel influence there. It doesn't have too much aggressiveness, not too much spiky or drying alcohol effect in the mouth. Not too bad. Not too bad at all. Now the finish is vanishingly short. I took a sip, gave my thoughts, finish is gone. And what is there is, again, that sort of sweet, soft caramel. I mean, it not even like kettle corn levels of depth of character there, but like slight buttered popcorn, a little bit of caramel, a little bit of like dust. It's overall kind of boring. Interestingly, this is one of those bourbons that the mouthfeel is really light feeling. There's a level of chewiness that a lot of people associate with bourbon. That, like, because it's got more oils than some other styles of whiskey and more like esters and fattiness to it, that it's a little bit thicker and sticks to the palate a little bit more. And this just doesn't have that. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing if you aren't a big fan of that. If you're not a big fan of a long finish, I can absolutely 100% understand that this wouldn't necessarily be for you. And there's nothing wrong with that. Personally, I prefer something that's got a little bit more. I mean, really, genuinely, meatiness is a good way to describe it, because it is that, like, again, I don't want to say that it's inherently bad to have something that is light, approachable. This is a good, when you're starting to look at um, uh, somebody having, just getting into bourbon, and they want something a little bit nicer, something that's maybe a little bit higher proof, or something that is a little bit nicer, and they don't want to spring for, you know, almost $150 bottle of bourbon that likely won't be for them because it's not approachable. This is an approachable, drinkable bourbon. And I think that is important and it has its place, but it's not for me. And on that note, talking about it maybe not being for me, let's talk about those three questions that I always ask and answer. One, do I like it? Not really. I find it to be boring, and for me, that's sort of one of the biggest problems with a lot of bourbon. It's why I frankly don't drink as much bourbon as I do other more interesting to me spirits. Two, do I think it's a good value? Um, yeah, I mean, it's okay. There are certainly, in my opinion, better bourbons for lower prices. And you can get decent bottled and bond bourbon. Old Granddad, Old Tub, those are, lower price point, more interesting whiskeys in my personal opinion. But again, that's my personal opinion. Everybody's mileage varies. And there's nothing wrong with liking this, which brings me to the third question. Do I recommend it? Yeah, if you're looking for something that is a relatively easygoing introduction to higher end bourbon, this is a good pick. It's not too pricey. It isn't going to be really off putting and aggressive, like, say, Old Forester birthday bourbon, which is totally different different price category. I'm trying to think of something in a similar price category, and I think this. I think the Heaven Hill Bottle and Bond is a close proximity price, maybe less approachable, but in my personal opinion, a better bourbon. And that I will gladly talk about when it comes up on the picker wheel. Which brings to mind, oh, hey, that's something that we ought to do. As you can see, I still have the winner up over here. So I click hide choice so I don't roll that again. And we'll spin again. So I'm always excited to see what we get. Rittenhouse Bonded Rye. Let's see. That one, weirdly enough, much like that Heaven Hill Bottle and Bond, is right in front of me. This is obviously a slightly older bottle. It's harder to get in VA at the moment. I haven't seen it in a little while. I may have to replace this bottle, but this, is the Rittenhouse Bottle and Bond Rye. I'll tell you some of the cool context about that on Friday when we talk about it, because there's genuinely some really interesting context about that brand and also about Bottle and Bond. With all that out of the way, just a heads up, tomorrow, on day after this is posted, tomorrow, Thursday, December 3rd, we're going to be interviewing the master distiller or head distiller from Black Cross Distilling out of New Ulm, Minnesota. I will be issuing an apology and a correction on my driving directions that I issued. I apologize. One of my friends in Minnesota reached out and let me know that I got roads wrong. It's not the 212 West, it's the 14 West. I will apologize properly when we have Jace on the show. So look forward to that. And then the day after, on Friday, Rittenhouse Bonded Rye review. And then on Saturday, we're going to be looking at let me find it. Nope. I'll find it eventually. 888 Distillery, 10-year-old release from Lost Lantern. Until then, all the usual stuff like comment, subscribe. If you're looking to learn more about American Single Malt Whiskey, Single Malt Frontier, tooting my own horn and, shouting out my co-host Doug, the place to learn about American Single Malt Whiskey. If you are looking for other bourbon reviews, stay tuned. There will probably be more bourbon reviews. There's plenty of bourbon on my list. So until next time, stay happy, stay geeks, stauncher.